Please like, subscribe, comment, and share. And I'll do this. Well, I'll probably do this. To be completely honest, I'll do this. He started off enthusiastic, optimistic, seemingly up to the challenge of investigating an intractable mystery. He ended up defeated, desperate, impotently begging for help from strangers, so lost he doesn't know what year it is. I, of course, am talking about me. Well, not just me, but all the Twin Peaks fans. The 25-year period from classic Twin Peaks to The Return has been rough on all of us, and I'm not optimistic about the next 25 years. Tasha Robinson's observation that Cooper's journey eerily parallels our journey is now considered canon by those Twin Peaks fans who see the work as reflexive metafiction. Rossiter of Twin Perfect argues that Cooper is intentionally cast as an audience surrogate whose story so closely mirrors our own that Lynch creates the illusion of a telepathic connection between the character and us. In this essay, we'll look at FBI Special Agent Dale Cooper, his many incarnations, his allies, enemies, and learn how a magically competent figure could fail so terribly. Twin Peaks is often a show about Twin Peaks fans. Cooper is a handsome, polite, capable man because investigation itself is heroic to Lynch, and I suspect that Twin Peaks fans feel the same way. So get ready to look at a show we loved, and maybe we'll see ourselves. I see from the comments written on YouTube and Reddit and the notes tied to bricks thrown through my window that many people still don't buy the theory that Cooper represents the audience for Twin Peaks. In part 2 of this series, I had discussed how Cooper's journey mirrors our own. In The Return, Cooper gets so close to the TV that he can see his reflection in the screen. Cooper's superimposed image represents the audience's face reflected in the television. Every time Cooper demonstrates some kind of psychic power, he knows something that we know from watching the show. He knows about Truman's affair with Josie after we see it. He knows about Big Ed's affair with Norma after we see it. He sees Albert the same time we see Albert, even though Cooper should not be seeing him. He sees Gordon Cole when we see him before Cooper should be able to see him. But are we sure that this is the proper way to read Cooper? Cooper could know what we know because he has psychic powers, and Twin Peaks can be read as sci-fi or fantasy instead of metafiction. Right? But there's more. Cooper hears music that he should not be able to hear. At the end of episode 3, he is snapping along to the jazzy score, even though it's part of the soundtrack. When Leland is singing Surrey with a fringe on top,
when I take you out in the Surrey,
Cooper is whistling the same tune, even though Cooper should not be able to hear Leland.
When I take you out in the Surrey.
In the movie Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, Cooper has advanced knowledge of Laura's death because we know it in advance because the movie is a prequel.
Lately I've been filled with the knowledge that the killer will strike again. But because it is just a feeling, I am powerless to stop it.
Cooper knows this in advance because we know it from having watched the TV show in our past, his future. He never predicts something specific that proves to be true hours later or in another episode. He never has an insight that we don't share with him. In The Return, Cooper exits the Red Room at the start of the series because we, the Twin Peaks audience, return to watch more Twin Peaks. He was in limbo for over 25 years because we did not exist. I mean, individually we all existed, but as a coherent group, the audience for Twin Peaks, we did not exist because we cannot exist in that form without new episodes of the show being created. We think of Cooper as a heroic character, but much of his behavior contradicts that. His upbeat demeanor is often inappropriate for a law enforcement professional investigating a terrible crime. In the first season, he's not merely enthusiastic, he is giddy. He's so excited about the murder mystery he can't even remember the victim's name.
Diane, I'm at the Twin Peaks County morgue with the body of the victim. What's her name? Laura Palmer.
He's excited to see rabbits, deer, and trees. Trees are a multi-layered metaphor for television. Rabbits also represent TV, as analog antennae used to be called rabbit ears. And deer seem to represent the fictional aspect of television shows. All of the fictional towns have antler-related names. Deer Meadow, Buckhorn, Elk Point, even Twin Peaks fits the mold, even though the name was created before the antler metaphor was conceived. Cooper is excited to watch a new TV show. But what about the things that Cooper knows that we don't? How is this information dealt with? For the answers, we must turn from the character who occupies the most screen time to the character that occupies no screen time. I'm distinguishing between off-screen character Diane from classic Twin Peaks and Laura Dern's character of Diane Evans and her evil doppelganger from The Return. If Cooper knows everything we know, then what about the things that Cooper knows that we don't know, but that we need to know? These are the things that Cooper speaks to Diane. I hope I'm not breaking any news when I say that Diane is not a real, literal character.
Diane, I was wondering if you could overnight express to me 2 pair of those ear pillow silicone earplugs.
He wants the earplugs overnighted to him and he's requesting it on audio tape? Is the audio tape overnighted to Diane? Remember, this is 1989. Cell phones were almost non-existent, but regular phones, fax, and email were around. If this was a literal plot point, Cooper needing those earplugs, he could get the message to Diane. But that's not what the tape recorder is all about. The actual TV show, Twin Peaks, exists on a high-end videotape, and the micro-audio cassette is congruent in shape and function. Cooper is sending messages directly to the TV show.
Diane, 11:30 a.m., February 24th. Entering the town of Twin Peaks. It's 5 miles south of the Canadian border, 12 miles west of the state line.
We need this information to orient ourselves.
Diane, it's the same thing. I told you I had a feeling we'd see this again. Ring finger, under the nail. Let's see what he left us. It's an R.
When Cooper recovered the piece of paper, we need to know why he's doing it, so he explains it to us. Sometimes we can see important clues that Cooper can see, but the visuals do not give us proper context.
Diane, it's 4:10 in the afternoon at the scene of the crime. Here's something we haven't seen before. A mound of dirt approximately 1.5 feet in diameter. At the base of the mound of dirt is a torn piece of newsprint written with the words, which appear to be in blood, "Fire, walk with me."
Here's something we haven't seen before. This sentence gives a lot of context in terms of revealing the backstory of the investigation. When Cooper is shot, there is no one to talk to. He cannot communicate anything through gesturing, so it's a good thing that the tape recorder automatically activates.
Diane, I'm lying on the floor of my room. I've been shot. All things considered, being shot is not as bad as I always thought it might be. All in all, a very interesting experience.
It's an interesting experience for us to watch this, so, in spite of the fact that he should be in mortal terror, it's interesting to Cooper. The point is that Cooper is giving us information we need. Diane is a flimsy pretext.
Audrey Horn is missing. Audrey's absence touches me in ways I could not predict. I find myself thinking not of clues or of evidence, but of the content of her smile.
Why would you make an official record of these thoughts? Because these are our thoughts, and Cooper confirms them. Even those of us who have a purely platonic love for the subtly erotic character would agree with Cooper's estimation. So that's Diane, a secondary component of an audience surrogate. Is Cooper the only audience surrogate? No, in fact, you could say that there is an entire bureau of them. Think about the fandom of Twin Peaks, at least as we exist in the US. We are a nationwide organization of people looking for clues. We are a Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Don't you just love sometimes saying Federal Bureau of Investigation like that all at once?
It is thrilling, Denise.
FBI agents always represent some aspect of the viewership. Gordon Cole, played by director David Lynch, is the director directing their attention. As an audience representative, Cooper has an awareness and an autonomy greater than the other characters. He has a special kind of agency, therefore he is a special agent.
Special agent, special agent, special agent. Special agent, are you there?
If we were to place all the FBI agents on a spectrum, and we are, the best way to do it is in terms of how the type of audience member they represent is favored by Lynch, from the types that Lynch is happy about to the types that Lynch disapproves of. It would go something like this. On the left is Dale Cooper and Chester Desmond, who is essentially Dale Cooper by a different name. More on that later. Cooper experiences the mystery, as Lynch wants us to experience the mystery rather than try to solve it. Tammy Preston is next. She represents the type of audience Lynch wants to attract to his work. New, young viewers. It looks like Cole is a dirty old man the way he creeps on Tammy. But this is yet another Lynchian metaphor. Lynch is attracted to the idea of bringing new, young viewers into the fold, so Tammy is a hot chick. Another way to interpret this is that Tammy represents new Twin Peaks fans, including those who are watching The Return without any context. This is why Cole and Albert are always guiding her so closely. Next is Sam Stanley. The naive Nebbish focuses on details and misses the big picture, but he can make important observations, so he has some favorability with Gordon Cole. After all,
Sam's the man who cracked the Whitman case.
Next comes Albert Rosenfield.
What the hell kind of a two-bit operation are they running out of this treehouse, Cooper?
I have seen some slipshod backwater burgs, but this place takes the cake.
Albert wants quick and easy answers, and therefore he's portrayed as impatient and rude. Note that if we take Twin Peaks literally, Albert is the best investigator. He's actually doing real investigative work that would work in a real-life criminal investigation. But with Twin Peaks, it's the journey, not the destination. So, paradoxically, he's bad. Next is Phillip Jeffries. Jeffries has gone rogue and started looking for Judy. I subscribe to Rossiter's theory that Judy represents the end of the mystery.
Judy is explanation and closure, and we want closure by means of an explanation.
Let's assume for the moment that Rossiter's theory is correct, and Judy is the concrete explanation that negates the audience's interest in Twin Peaks, the solution to the larger mystery of what is happening in Twin Peaks. Jeffries has this knowledge and it destroys him. Last but not least is Mr. C, Cooper's evil doppelganger, who I guess is not really in the FBI, literally. However, he uses presumably bootleg FBI technology to do his dirty work. He is fake FBI. He is the antithesis of Cooper because he is seeking Judy and therefore he is evil. Lynch associates closure with violence, so Mr. C is a violent criminal. Cooper wants to experience Twin Peaks, Mr. C wants to finish it.
I want that information.
He wants the information. In this scene, the information is the coordinates, as if there is a simple numerical code that allows one to understand Twin Peaks. Then he wants the bloated owl image. Eventually he wants Judy, meaning that he is using the accepted terminology for the explanation once he gets it from Jeffries.
Who is Judy?
He kind of doesn't know what he wants, just as a Twin Peaks fan who wants all the answers won't even know what question to ask. This leaves the Las Vegas branch of the FBI, whom we see a few times in The Return. I don't know why the Vegas branch would be filled with inept boobs, but perhaps that's all there is to it. These guys represent the Twin Peaks viewers who are totally off the rails and barking up the wrong tree. When asked to find Dougie Jones, they bring in a different guy named Dougie Jones. What better way to represent Twin Peaks fans who are completely off target? But let's get back to Chester Desmond, who is the first person assigned to find the killer who will turn out to be Bob/Leland. There is a very good out-of-universe explanation for his existence. Kyle MacLachlan didn't want a big role in Fire Walk with Me. He didn't want to be typecast as Dale Cooper, so we get Chester Desmond, CD instead of DC. Chester Desmond disappears just as he finds his first clue. There are multiple reasons for his disappearance, but notice that as soon as Desmond disappears, Cooper appears, as if he is taking his place. He is. It is right after Cooper enters the story that once again, a protagonist story is put on hold for a different FBI agent to just walk in and take over the story. Phillip Jeffries enters the story and starts describing an event at the location known as the meeting room, or the room above the convenience store. There is a surprisingly simple explanation for the jarring introduction of this character.
We have to follow the established mechanics of the show. So in order for our attention to be in the scene, there has to have been an FBI investigator there to represent us, and it's through his story that we are able to witness the scene.
Look at all the times we see a location that exists outside of the diegesis, specifically the Red Room. We only see it if Cooper is there. The only way that we can see the meeting room is if an audience representative, an FBI agent, is present. There is no reason why Cooper or Desmond or Sam or Albert would have been there, so Lynch has to create a new character. A character whose sole trait is that he was present at the meeting. This means that there must be an FBI agent who was trying to find these weirdos. What does it mean for an FBI agent to be tracking the so-called Black Lodge entities? It means that certain Twin Peaks audience members are trying to solve the mystery of Twin Peaks by understanding what is happening behind the scenes. Apparently, Jeffries did this. Jeffries has gained an understanding of the inner workings of Twin Peaks and it drove him mad. There's only one FBI agent left to discuss. After Lynch left the show in 1990, several new characters were introduced who were essentially abandoned by Lynch when he returned. One notable exception is Denise Bryson, the transgender woman and DEA agent played by David Duchovny.
Before you were Denise, when you were Dennis, and I was your boss, when I had you working undercover at the DEA, you were and are a great agent.
There is nothing in the original series to indicate that Denise was working for Cole. She was a DEA agent, end of story. However, for her to be an audience surrogate, she needs to be an FBI agent. So, to be consistent with the rules of Twin Peaks, she's retconned into an FBI agent working for the director. In the conceiving of The Return, Lynch has to excise all the elements in the original series that he considered unimportant, and even though Denise was a fan favorite, she was a character in some boring storylines that did not connect to Lynch's vision. I think that Denise represents viewers who love the Season 2 stuff that Lynch hated, and this scene is all about Lynch making peace with those viewers.
You were a confused and wild thing sometimes.
In Lynch's mind, the non-Lynchian Season 2 stuff happened because the series was out of control, or at least out of his control, confused and wild. But Denise is beautiful.
There's room in this Federal Bureau of Investigation for more than one beautiful woman.
Gordon.
Which means that Lynch craves his audience to be on his side. So that's the FBI and Twin Peaks. They all represent aspects of us. But what about hypothetical aspects of us? Parts of ourselves we think exist but don't. This is the premise of one of the most mysterious characters in all of Twin Peaks. The one thing we know for sure about Phillip Jeffries is that he was obsessed with Judy.
Well, now, I'm not going to talk about Judy. In fact, we're not going to talk about Judy at all.
The statement is paradoxical. You cannot refrain from mentioning Judy to say that the subject of Judy is forbidden. But that's the point. The subject of Judy is forbidden. It's the thing we are not supposed to talk about. And, of course, what's the one thing that Lynch never talks about? The meaning of his movies. The first time we see Jeffries, he is disoriented. He is so disoriented that he doesn't understand where he is in the story he inhabits. Jeffries appears in Philadelphia at 10:15 a.m. on the 16th of February, 1989.
And that was the day Phillip Jeffries appeared and didn't appear.
Jeffries is so willful that he can actually stop the movie he's in for his own benefit. This explains the strange business with the FBI security cameras.
While standing in the security room, he sees himself on the monitor still standing out in the hallway. The movie has been put on pause.
That's right, the story of Cooper is simply stopping so that the story of Jeffries can happen. When Cooper is the protagonist, the in-universe security camera will do what the out-of-universe film camera will do and record his motions. If a new protagonist becomes the center of the story, the security camera will record their motions, but not Cooper's. Since Cooper was in front of the security camera when his story paused, the ghostly image of him standing stock still remains on the image. And what is so important that Jeffrey interrupts the movie?
It was a dream. We lived inside a dream. Judy is positive about this.
Jeffrey has the official explanation of Twin Peaks, and therefore Jeffries understands that he is a fictional character in a story, a dream. It's not supposition, Judy's positive, so there's certainty. This is one of the reasons why he's gone mad. In The Return, Jeffries is different. He's no longer panicking. He's serene and wise, like maybe he came to terms with what he saw. Maybe he understands what he saw, and that's why Cooper and Mr. C, who want to understand, come to him, like an upperclassman. Jeffries represents the hypothetical Twin Peaks fan who has all the answers. That's why Cole says this.
Phillip Jeffries, who doesn't really exist anymore, at least not in the normal sense, told me a long time ago he was onto this entity. And he disappeared.
A Twin Peaks fan who has cracked the code isn't even a Twin Peaks fan anymore to Lynch. It's like saying he's dead to me. If there is nothing more for Jeffries to investigate, then he is no longer an investigator and no longer needs to be, nor can be represented by an audience surrogate. He isn't even human anymore. Yes, I know, David Bowie's illness and death in 2016 was the primary reason that Jeffries does not appear as a human being anymore. But that doesn't mean that the internal logic of Twin Peaks stopped existing. Where is the present-day non-human Jeffries? He's in the creepy motel known as the Dutchman, right? Nope. Mr. C finds Phillip Jeffries by going to room 8 of the motel, and then he looks at a wall, the literal fourth wall, the wall that does not exist to the audience but does exist to the characters. Let me play that again. Remember, I'm not altering this footage. We see the wall, and the wall just wipes away. Later, the real Cooper is led by Mike, not through the Dutchman but around it. Cooper is not on the other side of the fourth wall. He's in the same space as Jeffries. They never walk into the hotel because the interior of the hotel only exists for certain kinds of characters. If you're on the other side of the fourth wall, that means that you're in the audience, right? But Mr. C and Cooper are audience surrogates, right? How can the audience see the audience? How can there be two different things that represent the audience? There's only one way to reconcile this. Jeffries represents the aspect of the audience that understands that it's watching characters who represent the audience. But why does Cooper seek Jeffries? It seems that Jeffries has the power to send Cooper back in time. Can Jeffries alter the content of Twin Peaks? Remember, this is an entirely internal proposition. The part of our brain that wants to return to the inciting event of Twin Peaks has to get permission from the part of our brain that has metacognition. Thinking about thinking. Cooper isn't completely cognizant of this process. just as we don't know what's happening. Jeffries is cognizant. He does understand. So it seems like he's just magic to Cooper. But why does Jeffries tease Mr. C with knowledge of Judy?
Judy represents the explanation and closure that leads to darkness taking over. So the Judy symbol is a big black void. Darkness growing to completely eclipse Twin Peaks.
Who is Judy?
You've already met Judy.
We have already met Judy when we got our explanation and closure from the killer's reveal in Season 2, again from the Season 2 ending that literally ended the show.
Jeffries is an off-screen character until episode 15 of The Return, when Mr. C confronts him. But Mr. C has to go through the metaphysical infrastructure of the fiction that is Twin Peaks to do that. Why is it so hard to see Jeffries? Jeffries is supposed to be an off-screen character. Since he does not appear on screen, his existence is supposed to be part of the machinery of the TV show. So, when an audience avatar looks at him, they'll see abstract machinery. This is why he cannot appear even as a voice in the diegesis.
Did you call me 5 days ago?
I don't have your number.
Jeffries cannot even contact characters in the diegesis by phone. We learn that a Jeffries imposter was pulling the strings, while the real Jeffries was just, sitting there puffing smoke. He cannot interact with them because he has nothing to do. There is nothing for him to investigate. 25 years of knowing all the answers hasn't gotten Jeffries out of purgatory. It just sent him to a new kind. In the final episode of the original series, possibly the most surreal hour of television up to that point in history, Cooper is in the Red Room, and this is the first time that he has physically entered the Red Room, as opposed to dreaming that he is there. It would seem that every character in the Red Room has a doppelganger, and in universe these characters are called doppelgangers, so there's little ambiguity.
Doppelganger!
Laura's doppelganger is easy to figure out. Laura is a very inviting character. You want to follow her story regardless of what kind of story you want. Laura's doppelganger chases you away. Leland Palmer is most notorious for being Laura's killer, so Leland's doppelganger is simple.
I did not kill anybody.
The dwarf helps Cooper, so his doppelganger isn't helpful at all. In The Return, the dwarf is now the talking tree called the Evolution of the Arm. It tries to help Cooper, so its doppelganger throws Cooper's journey into chaos. If Cooper represents the audience as Lynch wants us to be, the investigators who experience the mystery, then Cooper's doppelganger wants to end the mystery. To Lynch, premature closure is the equivalent of violence. This is why Mr. C and Bob hit it off immediately, and Bob is literally inside Mr. C. Bob and Mr. C are both associated with types of violence. Equating violence with closure is such a bizarre connection that I understand why people reject it. But remember, I don't make these essays to twist Lynch's symbols into something that's intuitive. I'm just telling you what the symbolism is when you unpack the text. At the end of the final episode of the original series, the evil Cooper doppelganger, who will later be called Mr. C, escapes with Bob inside him. There's a very good reason this happens in the final episode. If there is no more Twin Peaks, then there is nothing for Dale Cooper to do, so he's trapped in the Black Lodge. Either Cooper or Mr. C can exist in the diegesis, because either Twin Peaks is on the air or it isn't. The first thing that Mr. C does is try to metaphorically watch TV, which is symbolized by dreaming, which you do when you're asleep, and before you sleep, you need to brush your teeth.
I need to brush my teeth.
Good idea.
But Mr. C cannot dream, so his attempts to brush his teeth end in failure. In a deleted scene from Fire Walk with Me, this scene continues.
You're going right back to bed.
But I haven't brushed my teeth yet.
This is not the first time that the connection between brushing teeth and quality television has been made, even though it seems like a ridiculous non sequitur. This metaphor has been used and reinforced in every episode of the original series. In the opening credit sequence, we see the teeth of the saw blades being brushed with a wire pad before they can, you guessed it, saw logs. The show itself has to brush its teeth before it can make dreams. We see this image twice, the second time being the title card. The name of the show is over an image of teeth being brushed. In the pilot, the longer opening credit sequence has 3 angles of this image. Every episode begins with teeth being brushed, and both attempts to end the original Twin Peaks references teeth not being brushed.
Harriet, don't forget to brush your teeth.
When The Return happens in 2017, more than 25 years later, We pick up the story and find that Mr. C has become powerful and destructive. However, with the return on television, Twin Peaks returning in real life, that means it's time for the real Cooper to escape, which can only happen if Mr. C goes back in.
He must come back in before you go out.
Mr. C acknowledges that if Cooper comes out, he will be sucked back in.
I'm supposed to get pulled back into what they call the Black Lodge, but I'm not going back there. I've got a plan for that one.
It is the out-of-universe return of Twin Peaks to real television that is prompting the reversal. But it doesn't happen. Why not? After decades of films with doppelgangers, Lynch introduces his first triple ganger. Let's take a look at the beginning of Twin Peaks: The Return. We see Dr. Jacoby, Ben and Jerry Horn, Lucy, the Log Lady, Hawk, Andy, and at least the body of Major Briggs from the original series. We catch up with Mr. C and meet his criminal gang. We're introduced to all the new Lynchian characters in Buckhorn, South Dakota. We see the sinister Duncan Todd in Las Vegas and the terrifying Glass Box in New York City. Then we see Hawk investigating Glastonbury Grove where Cooper disappeared. We don't know why Hawk is there, but it appears that his proximity to the front entrance to the Red Room prompts this next scene. 1¼ episodes in, we finally see our protagonist, Special Agent Dale Cooper. Cooper has just been sitting there for 25 years because there has been no Twin Peaks television needing his participation. Now television itself marks this point in time.
This is future or this is past?
Mike is asking a rhetorical question. He is telling us that we don't know where we are on the timeline. The second person to talk to Cooper is Laura Palmer herself.
You can go out now.
There are two meanings to Cooper leaving. One meaning, the most obvious, is Cooper literally leaving the Red Room. The second meaning is us, who Cooper represents, leaving the show, just turning off the TV and giving up. After all, there really is no Twin Peaks to happen. The show ended decades ago and there's nothing more to say.
Our intuitive minds can leave now. Last chance to turn the TV off and walk away before we get what we wished for. If we keep watching past this point, we either don't hear Laura's warning or we don't want to hear it. After she tells us we can leave, Cooper asks,
When can I go?
We've already been told we can go out anytime we want. But as long as we're watching, Dale Cooper will have to be there in the TV.
This is a very important point. The fact that we are watching the show causes the show to exist. Lynch wants the illusion of a two-way communication between us and television, as opposed to the one-way connection that defines mass media. In fact, all the bizarre restarts that happen in The Return can be thought of as the concluded show trying to end. But because we're still watching, something has to happen to constitute the show. Something that can be called Twin Peaks has to happen. Laura is ripped out of the scene, representing the absence of Twin Peaks' substance. However, if you focus on Laura's disappearance, you will miss a very subtle transition. Take a look at Cooper's eyes in this shot. When he blinks, you can see that he is backwards. Cooper is being shot in reverse from this point on. Previously, all the characters outside the diegesis are recorded backwards, but Cooper is recorded forwards. The uncanny backwards talking of the otherworldly characters is one of the most memorable features of Twin Peaks. But Cooper is always talking normally. Cooper has now become not an audience avatar, but a character in the show. The link to us has been severed. It seems that there is a rear entrance to the Red Room. The curtains blow back and we can see what's beyond. What would it mean to exit this way? Well, if the Red Room is backstage and you go past backstage and just keep going, you will be in reality. The darkness is the reality you face after you stop watching TV. Cooper is contemplating turning off the TV and giving up on the show. However, we cut right back to a replay of this scene.
This is future or this is past?
We are starting over, like in a video game. Note that Cooper is now being shot moving forward. However, we are no longer seeing the same TV show that started in episode 1. We are now seeing Cooper's dream. In Cooper's dream, there is something to do. There is a Twin Peaks story to unfold. So, Cooper gets to talk to the avatars of TV, Mike and the evolved arm. The evolved arm instructs Cooper to leave. meaning to stop watching and give up on new Twin Peaks content. However, Cooper misinterprets this as a command to literally leave the Red Room, and he attempts to do so. He cannot. There is some sort of barrier preventing him from leaving. The barrier is the fact that there is nothing for Dale Cooper to do in the Twin Peaks world. There is no show, so Cooper has nowhere to go. Yes, there is a real show, and Mr. C is in that show, and like us, Cooper can watch that show, but just like we can't pull a reverse The Ring and walk into a TV show, Cooper cannot interject himself into a show in which he has no place. Cooper wanders the corridors of the Red Room, looking for anything. This represents us looking for any way for the story to continue. It's possible that Cooper has accidentally traveled from the White Lodge to the Black Lodge, but these definitions have never been canonically clarified, so call it what you want. The evolved arms doppelganger drops Cooper out of the Red Room. Cooper is being removed from the story. Cooper goes into the glass box. Why is that? If the evil tree's goal is to move Cooper to non-existent, why this intermediary step? Why not just drop him into the purple ocean? It's because Cooper is an audience avatar, and he cannot be removed from existence as long as we are watching. If we assume that evil forces are playing all the angles in order to rid the universe of Cooper, then they would have to break the audience link to Cooper. When Cooper was being filmed backwards, he was temporarily untethered from us. But when we refused to exit the darkness and the story rebooted, we regained our connection. And that's why Cooper ends up in the glass box. If we think of the glass box as representing television, and we should, Cooper is now a character in a TV show that is not linked to the audience. Sam, the audience, is ignoring him. This forces Cooper into non-existence. Except, again, no. We're still watching, so Cooper still exists. If we keep watching, then some kind of reality has to form around Cooper, even a paradoxical reality like seeing things that don't exist. Non-existence is a place.
Where is this? Where are we?
Cooper has the option to exit non-existence and go straight to episode 15 through the number 15 power line. In non-existence, we see ideas before they become part of a story, before they exist, and if Mother gets her way, they will be permanently deleted. So imagine that the forces that make TV are having a conversation. Do we cut right to episode 15 and see Cooper return? Remember, it is in episode 15 that Dougie transforms back into Cooper. The return could be half as long. And during pre-production, Showtime tried to get Lynch to cut the series down from 18 episodes to 9 or 13. In other words, Cooper could make Showtime's cost-cutting measure a reality by simply jumping into the number 15 socket. But no, Naito flips a switch and the mechanism that inserts Cooper into the story changes from 15 to 3, the current episode. Now Cooper can go back into the diegesis. Cooper goes to Vegas and he has none of his memories or abilities.
When he attempts to return to the evil that Twin Peaks has become, his souls don't make it back through. Consequently, Dougie is soulless.
Not only that, but Cooper's FBI pin is gone. This confirms that he has lost his connection with the audience. Now Cooper is no longer FBI. He is Dougie Jones, an inert character with no motivation or initiative. We have no interest in Dougie, therefore Dougie has no interest in anything. This is the ultimate commentary on modern television. But what is Lynch saying? I had stated in part 1 of this series that Dougie Jones can be thought of as a character with no agency. But why create such a character?
Lynch is trying to make a point about what the audience as a whole wants. We want the evil. It entertains us. Let's get back to Mr. C. I'm getting so bored here. Mr. C's murder mystery thriller in Buckhorn is the most interesting, most suspenseful, best acted part of The Return, with the highest production value. We can't wait for Dougie's farcical comedy to finish.
Rossiter seems to be saying that Dougie is not ironic, that all the good things that happen in Dougie's world are meant to be taken at face value and not rejected because his story is ridiculous. Dougie projects love, and that's why he improves the life of everyone with whom he comes into contact. But that's just it. He improves everyone's life, including his own. All the storylines get wrapped up in a ridiculous way.
So what finally wakes Cooper up? The ultimate evil. Closure. By the end of this story, Dougie's job is saved, the insurance company's saved, Dougie's debts are paid off, the Mitchum brothers are good guys now, Sonny Jim has his father back, Janie E has her husband back, the hitman situation just kind of works itself out, and everyone loves Dougie.
Oh, Dougie. It's like all our dreams are coming true.
Compare this to the rest of the events in The Return. Dozens of characters who come and go without any kind of resolution to their story. This is because these subplots have no pathway to a climax. There is no mechanism for their stories to resolve. They are not dramatic narratives. Dougie's story is also not a dramatic narrative, but with all the dangling plot lines in the return, Lynch subverts our expectations by eschewing closure. He does the opposite with the Dougie Jones story. Lynch subverts our expectations by presenting a character with no positive attribute except for luck. Ridiculous good luck. Dougie is an agent for an insurance company that insures casinos. It gambles on gambling, the ultimate institution of luck.
There is no such thing as luck in a TV show. Occurrences that might be considered lucky or unlucky in real life are, to a TV character, fated according to the script, the intention of the show's creators.
This is why all of Dougie's occurrences of good luck can be directly tied to images of the avatars of TV creation in the Red Room. Dougie begins playing the slot machines and wins almost $500,000. This is a foolproof way of letting us know that Dougie, now nicknamed Mr. Jackpot, has impossibly good luck. Dougie can identify which machine will pay off as the light from the Red Room shines over it. The glow tells Dougie that Anthony is a liar.
He's lying.
The glow tells Dougie how to react to the Mitchum's claim. The evolved arm tells Dougie how to defeat Ike.
Squeeze his hand off! Squeeze his hand off!
Mike guides Dougie at several occasions, including when he gestures for Cooper to buy a cherry pie, which will save his life. Television itself guides Dougie. Dougie's good luck is so improbable that we are not watching a drama, we are watching wish fulfillment. In other words, the story is very childish. Dougie doesn't get a check from the casino, but rather a cartoonish canvas bag filled with cash. Later, characters will talk in equally childishly simplistic terms. When Anthony tries to convince the Mitchum brothers that Doug is their enemy, he says it in coy adult terms.
This Mr. Jones did everything in his power to prevent you gentlemen from getting the insurance relief you deserved. Douglas Jones seemed to have a personal vendetta against you.
But that doesn't sink in, so he has to dumb it down.
You have an enemy in Douglas Jones.
As if parroting Anthony, the Mitchums discuss the matter in equally childish terms while having breakfast. Two grown men eating children's cereal together.
I hate him so bad. I can't wait to kill this guy.
Childishness is key to Dougie's story. Often the humor involves Dougie simply being an idiot. As we, the real audience, laugh at him, Dougie's son laughs at him as well, as if we and the boy are watching the same TV show. The son, Sonny Jim, is the only consistently happy character, and the only character that is literally a child. The characters have diminutive names ending in E sounds: Sonny, Dougie, Janie E, Rodney, Bradley, Mandy, Candy, Sandy. It seems that Janie E's name has been diminutized twice. But let's get back to Sonny Jim, a son named after son Ness. After seeing Sonny Jim for the first time, Dougie sees him packed up in the car, and Dougie sheds a tear. But Dougie, who, let's remember, is an inert Cooper living as Dougie, doesn't know who Sonny Jim is. He might not even understand the concept of father and son or adult and child, but he's driven to emotion. Why is that? Well, most revivals of old TV shows are an attempt to capitalize on our nostalgia, and what is nostalgia but a yearning for the past, when we were younger, maybe a child? Sonny Jim represents the childhood to which we want to return. The character of Dougie Jones tells us what kind of entertainment we want and why. But it is bad writing to have a character with no agency be childishly lucky. So the Dougie Jones story is meant to be a commentary on bad TV, right? So many Twin Peaks fans complain about how the Dougie Jones story is boring and doesn't fit into the larger story. Lynch is trolling us, right? The problem with that interpretation is that we enjoy all the good that comes from Dougie. We like the fact that his story ends well with everyone happy. We get the feeling that Lynch enjoys it as well. This is why we can think of Dougie as representing love itself.
We have to find the love hidden in Dougie's Las Vegas story and inside of ourselves. We want to see Coop go after the bad guys and win. We don't want all this love nonsense. We're frustrated by these Dougie scenes. They're corny and goofy, and we would really rather they weren't in the show, right? We're gonna be like Albert, patiently waiting for him to get on with it. But Lynch is all like, you go ahead and be impatient and humorless over there. I'll be over here enjoying all this mundane beauty.
It's a good one.
That's right, you could think of Dougie's story as representing good television. It's fun and silly, and its complete lack of drama could be viewed as a positive instead of a negative. Dougie's story is only a bad story if we view it in the context of traditional dramatic narrative. Obstacles, character arcs, complications, and resolutions that are earned by brilliantly tying up all the loose ends. This is what we want. This is the story I try to write when I write. However, Lynch does not follow narrative convention. Dougie's story is anti-drama. It's an aspirational story, a tale of good things happening to good people and bad people becoming good. The lesson is that Mr. C's criminal mastermind story is more interesting to us because it's going somewhere, right? Wrong.
Mr. C keeps our attention on himself and not on boring, empty Dougie Jones by repeatedly creating mysteries for us to puzzle over. Why is he looking for Judy? What is Mr. C's connection to the Hastings family? Who is Mr. Strawberry, and what do severed dog legs have to do with him? What is that little cow jumped over the moon box that shrinks into a rock? These questions that will never have answers are the fresh attention Mr. C runs on for the duration of Season 3.
Mr. C's story is just as vacuous, but because Mr. C is evil, we want to watch it. P.S. If there is a secret hidden message to Mr. Strawberry, Joe McCluskey, and all this gobbledygook, someone smarter than me is going to have to figure it out. For now, I say it's random nonsense. Prove me wrong, and the first person to congratulate you will be me. It kind of seems like Mr. C is in competition with Dougie for our attention. Like Mr. C knows he's a character in a TV show, and he feeds on our attention. That's exactly what he is. What is the worst thing we could do? Be interested in Mr. C's sinister story, or be interested in Dougie's silly story? Lynch leaves you to answer this question for yourself. At the end of Dougie's story, a literal television literally tells him what's going on.
Get Gordon Cole. Tell him he can get another old car someplace.
In this clip from the film Sunset Boulevard, famous film director Cecil B. DeMille, playing himself, gives away the store. A real famous film director playing himself in a movie, referring to a fictional famous film director, after whom a famous real film director proxy is named, is on the television explaining the TV show his movie is in. Dougie is interested because we're interested. We want to know why the character that is real in the Twin Peaks universe, Gordon Cole, would be a fictional character. We want to investigate this, so our investigator mind resumes dominance. But Cooper doesn't immediately snap back. He's in a coma. Then we cut to Gordon Cole in South Dakota. This is one of many scenes in Twin Peaks that is mysterious, not because something uncanny happens, but because nothing happens. Cole just stands there. This is a quarter of the way through episode 16. All Cole does is look at the coffee pot, which is now empty. Coffee equals investigation, so Cole is realizing that the investigation into the strange goings-on in Buckhorn, South Dakota has ended. Cole is worried, like he knows that something terrible is happening. We cut back to Cooper, and nothing happens. Then one of the most violent scenes in all of Twin Peaks happens, and the assassins are taken out by the person known only as the Polish accountant. Cooper awakens. Or does he? He talks directly to Mike.
You are awake.
100%.
Finally.
How is this happening? It's a kind of telepathic communication, right? No, the two exchange physical items. Mike gives Cooper the owl ring and Cooper gives Mike hair. Mike is physically there. This is because Cooper is still in the Red Room. I had said that in episode 2, we start following Cooper's dream, and we are still following it. This is why we continue to see fantasy wish fulfillment. Once Dougie becomes Cooper, the story starts to bend to our will. Cooper is us, and Cooper does the things that we want him to do. After exchanging niceties with characters that Cooper loves because we love them, Cooper makes a beeline for Twin Peaks, the city, just as we want to return to Twin Peaks, the TV show.
Pack it up. I know where he's going.
One of the few uncontroversial interpretations of the return is that the big fight scene in the penultimate episode is meant to be a fake-out. Twin Peaks is not a superhero story, but the Deus Ex Machina of Freddie Sykes has all the hallmarks of a cheesy Hollywood ending. Freddy has a green fist like the Hulk, and he got his powers from a cosmic entity he stumbled upon in an alley, just like the original Shazam Captain Marvel. This is Cooper's dream, our dream, fan fiction, complete with an amateur attempt at a satisfying resolution that superficially mimics the hundreds we have seen in TV and movies. If Cooper represents our desire for experiential TV, peace, and Mr. C represents easy answers, violence, then Cooper defeating Mr. C doesn't make any sense. Oh sure, on a literal level it makes sense. The good guy fights and defeats the bad guy. However, everything that these symbolic figures do has to match the reality that they represent. Typically in a satisfying resolution, all or most of the characters are assembled in the same space, so most of the characters are assembled in Truman's office.
It's a good thing we made so many sandwiches.
Why did the Mitchum brothers and their consorts come 1,000 miles to Twin Peaks? Cooper wants them there. Why did Andy collect everyone left in prison and bring them upstairs with such determination?
I've got to get you all upstairs.
There's danger upstairs, so let's go there. That's neither a logical nor heroic action, but Cooper wants them there. Oftentimes it is good dramatic writing backwards that creates an organic set of circumstances where everything happens in a satisfying resolution. Everything seems logical if you're a good writer. That's not what's happening. We want closure without regard for fidelity to the internal logic of Twin Peaks, and therefore everything is illogical, inorganic, forced, almost a parody. We even get a reuniting of lovers who weren't even established as lovers.
Do you remember everything?
Yes.
And who was the real Diane? I discussed the meaning of Diane in classic Twin Peaks, but let's go back to the Twin Perfect video for some idea of who this Diane might be.
Twin Peaks was David Lynch's dream, so only he knew what she might look like. But The Return is our dream. Diane is the mental projection of what we think Diane is, and the world she's living in is a mental projection of what we think the new Twin Peaks should have been. In this way, Diane represents Twin Peaks itself.
The Return is our crappy fan fiction version of Lynch's dream of Twin Peaks, and Diane represents that. And what is Lynch doing? Worrying. Gordon Cole, Lynch's avatar, is concerned. He is seeing his creation mangled. Eventually, this story ends.
Gordon, go!
What's left to do when the story reaches its conclusion? Well, even though we may initially get some delight from the defeat of evil and the forced closure, we feel that something isn't right. So Cooper feels that way. He needs to do something. He needs to change things, even if it's a change so radical that it's the equivalent of altering the past.
Now, there are some things that will change. The past dictates the future.
We see Cooper, us, Diane, our concept of what Twin Peaks should be, and Gordon Cole, the ersatz director and original dreamer of Twin Peaks. And yes, Mark Frost deserves at least half the credit, but only one character stands in for the director, so that's how I will interpret it. They are in the basement of the Great Northern Hotel. In the original series, the Great Northern Hotel represents the studio where Twin Peaks is being made, but we see hundreds of guests and staff. There is constant activity. Not only are the characters attention-grabbing, but so is the decor, which often features images of eyes. Yes, there's a mention of Mrs. Houseman, and James and Freddie's presence indicates that there is some work being done, but it's all off-screen. How come we don't see much of the hotel? The answer is given by Ben Horne when he receives the old mechanical key that Cooper brought with him into the Red Room.
That's an old one. We switched to cards over 20 years ago.
After classic Twin Peaks, television itself switched from analog low resolution to digital high definition, and The Return is part of this new state-of-the-art television. The Great Northern Hotel is all modern now, except for the basement, where analog technology still works. The old key only unlocks a door in the basement, which is true to life since hotels renovate the guest areas, not the employee areas. Through the locked door is the Dutchman. Inside the big, clean, updated hotel is a small, dirty, outdated hotel. This is why a mysterious sound comes from the basement. It's the sound of analog equipment, classic television, which no longer exists on the top floors. Having the old room key, Cooper has access to the Dutchman. Note that the reflection of Cooper in the screen vanishes when this happens. Cooper is intercepted by Mike, meaning that he is backstage again, but not the Red Room part of backstage. This is the room above the convenience store, which contains the creepy hallway with the faded floral pattern and the meeting room, both first seen in Fire Walk with Me, as well as the stairway, an entire forest, and the Dutchman. This is the stage, or diegesis, as it exists if you don't see the artifice of the story. In other words, it's the stage representing the stage. I talked about this in part 2 of the series. The door that leads to the Dutchman is definitely the same door that appears to Laura Palmer when she gains diegetic awareness in Fire Walk with Me. This is basically the stage minus the set, something not visible to the characters if they don't know that they are characters. Mr. C had to go through room 8, which represents the stage, and see through the fourth wall. Cooper goes down a different path and speaks directly to Jeffries. He is not seeing Jeffries through a fourth wall, he is simply there. Jeffries asks for a date, as if he knows in advance that Cooper intends to go back in time. Cooper, always unflappable, gives him the date of Laura's murder.
February 23rd, 1989.
Actually, it's the 24th since Laura died after midnight, but fine. Cooper goes back in time. He intercepts Laura before she meets up with Leo, Jacques, and Renette, and promises to bring her home, which is a proxy for Cooper to go home, which is a proxy for us, the audience, to go home, which is a proxy for our desire to return to the happiness and safety of our youth. But of course, you can't do that, as Thomas Wolfe famously said, so Laura disappears. Why does Laura disappear? Rossiter refers to a quote from Lynch that clears this up.
Laura Palmer was born to die on TV to create the continuing mystery that was Twin Peaks. As soon as a show has a sense of closure, it gives you an excuse to forget you've seen the damn thing. If you forget you've seen it, it might as well not have happened. We brought Laura's mystery to a close, therefore, Laura's murder didn't matter, therefore, it might as well not have happened. And this is illustrated perfectly by our mistakenly well-intentioned representative going back in time to rescue Laura from her fate, thus erasing the reason for Twin Peaks.
It's almost like Lynch is giving away the store. Lynch equates closure with retroactive annihilation, and time travel is the ultimate expression of that idea. Yet another attempt by Cooper to go home has failed. However, there was one option remaining. Stop trying to force a story to happen from within the story and do it from the outside. Mike gives his reset line a third time in episode 18.
This is future or this is past.
And that's how we know the dream is over. We find out that we have been in the Red Room the whole time, watching our dream of a new Twin Peaks. Cooper exits the Red Room through the established exit leading to Glastonbury Grove, the edge of the stage or diegesis in Twin Peaks. There he meets Diane.
Is it really you?
Now that Cooper has stopped dreaming, it's time to make his Twin Peaks, our Twin Peaks, a reality, and that means leaving the diegesis for reality. I have talked in great detail about how the weird, otherworldly places represent backstage, but that does not mean that they represent reality. They represent a place in between reality and fiction.
And the house is doing the world.
Can you go from the diegesis through backstage and straight through to reality? In my essay on Lost Highway, I discuss how the titular highway is a physical road from the diegesis to the metaphysically different backstage area where the studio is represented by the Lost Highway Hotel. What if you drove past the hotel and just kept going? Would you end up in reality? Well, the film's protagonist, Fred, tries it and it doesn't end well. But Fred doesn't represent anything that exists in reality. In Twin Peaks, we have either the Lost Highway or a road with the same properties. This highway takes Cooper and Diane into the backstage, and there's yet another Lynchian hotel there, exactly where the Lost Highway Hotel would be. The next step in the process of making our Twin Peaks a reality is for the avatar of the audience and the avatar of the TV show to literally have sex, since that represents the communion between audience and content. The bizarre sex act represents the act of making Twin Peaks a real show. Eventually, Diane covers Cooper's face.
TV characters can't see the audience watching them. She is compelled not to see it because TV characters literally can't even.
The audience can see the characters, but not vice versa. Remember, Leland covered up Teresa's eyes to make sure that she could not see him because he needed to enforce the one-way nature of mass media. Diane needs to enforce that she can be seen by, but cannot see the audience. So the next scene should be Cooper in his idealized new version of Twin Peaks, right? No, he doesn't end up in Twin Peaks, and he's not even Cooper anymore. Cooper wakes up as Richard in a new world. Rossiter has a pretty straightforward explanation for the nature of this place.
We're moving to a world where Twin Peaks doesn't exist anymore. And the only place it doesn't exist is outside of TV world in the present. In the real reality of the present, where there are no such people as Cooper, Laura, or Diane.
Cooper is Richard and Diane is Linda. Cooper is not real, but the people that he represents are real, so Richard makes it out. In other words, Richard is a Dale Cooper. The Twin Peaks we crave does not exist, so Diane doesn't make it out. If Richard is a Cooper, then is he also a Mr. C? Well, Cooper finds a restaurant called Judy's, but it was Mr. C, not Cooper, who was looking for Judy's, so Richard now has the personality and memories of Mr. C. Look carefully at this shot. Kyle MacLachlan is playing Cooper organically becoming Mr. C. Richard apparently has retained Mr. C's capacity for violence, so the cowboys are dealt with handily. Richard finds Carrie Page and wants to take her home, just as Cooper wanted to take Laura home. We did not learn the lesson Cooper should have learned, that you cannot go home, so Richard assumes that literally transporting this Laura Palmer's substitute to the physical location of the Palmer house will get the job done. This final scene has been discussed in detail already. Richard finds the real house used for the filming of Twin Peaks, and the real owner, Mary Reber, plays herself with a different name, Alice Tremont. Alice Tremont is a random person who has no idea what's going on. To her, Richard is a random guy looking for a random person named Sarah. We tried to bring back Twin Peaks, not to fondly remember the show, but to bring a new Twin Peaks into the real world, and it failed. However, is it sufficient to say that we are in the real world, and this explains the nature of the Odessa universe? I would say no. I have to disagree with Rossiter for a simple reason. Too many unreal things happen. It is an incredible coincidence that Richard goes to a place called Judy's and the Laura Palmer substitute just happens to work there, and somehow Richard knows that she works there even though he should have no idea what's happening. There is a Lynchian indifference of the characters to a violent murder. When Richard dispatches the cowboys, he has speed and agility that's impossible in the real world, but this sort of thing happens all the time in TV shows. What is this place? It would seem that we have a new world where elements from Twin Peaks have just been dropped in at random. This brand new world is connected to Twin Peaks in a bizarre way. The protagonist is not only identical to Cooper, but he seems to have all of Cooper's memories. Let's go with this and try to figure out why such a world would exist. Let's consider Frost and Lynch creating Twin Peaks. They take a lot of real things. Crime, the FBI, investigation, coffee, cream corn, sorrow, trees, and real cities like New York City and Las Vegas. They also invent a lot of things like the town of Twin Peaks itself, as well as the other fictional towns and fantasy elements like a magical dwarf. Because they use a lot of symbolism, sometimes two things from reality will be combined in an unreal way. Coffee is real and investigation is real, but coffee as a symbol for investigation is a Twin Peaks original. Now let's say, hypothetically, that someone decides to rip off Twin Peaks. Well, it's not hypothetical. TV and film have been ripping off Twin Peaks for decades, but let's think about it abstractly. Our plagiarists would take ideas from Twin Peaks, but they would also take character types from Twin Peaks. The Cooper character gets the Richard name, the Laura Palmer character survives to adulthood and gets the Carrie first name from Carrie's Handy Mart and the Page last name from Beverly Page. The number 6 utility pole is unchanged. The white horse manifests as a figurine. Judy, the unseen demonic figure, is merely Eat It Judy's. Coffee, a magical potion, is merely coffee. The Tremont name attaches itself to Alice Tremont, and the Chalfont name attaches itself to another off-screen character. Also, the Black Lincoln owned by Mr. C makes it into the Odessa universe. Mr. C's Black Lincoln is parked at the hotel, ready to be Richard's Black Lincoln. But what is the organizing principle behind all these transformations? What is the common denominator? If you say that there is no logical way to interpret these transformations, then I agree. There simply isn't a consistent rule that's being obeyed. Can we say that Twin Peaks elements are being randomly dropped into a new show? I think that's the only explanation. But again, why would such a thing exist? It's because someone who doesn't understand the context of Twin Peaks is trying to recreate a Twin Peaks-like environment. The final episode takes place in a ripoff of Twin Peaks. I would bet money that someone in the last 30 years pitched to a network Twin Peaks but in Texas. When Richard drinks the coffee, he is disappointed. This is a subtle but meaningful reaction. In Twin Peaks, coffee is like a magic potion. It powers the characters to investigate and imbues them with the desire to experience the wholesome mystery that is Twin Peaks. In Odessa, coffee is just coffee. But why would random protagonist Richard have the memories of Cooper? It's because we are still watching. Richard was supposed to be the protagonist, but since the Twin Peaks audience is engaging with this show as if it was Twin Peaks, then Cooper's mind takes over the protagonist. As long as we are watching and expecting a Twin Peaks reboot, whatever is on the television will bend itself into that. Richard has all of Cooper's memories, but Carrie Page is a clean slate, as if when the Laura Palmer type was recycled, she was reformatted for this other show. The Cooper type was also reformatted, but then by watching this new show without the proper context, we drop our memories of Twin Peaks into it, and therefore all of Cooper's memories drop into Richard.
So the name Laura Palmer means nothing to you?
I don't know what you want, but I'm not her.
Your father's name was Leland.
Okay.
Your mother's name is Sarah.
Sarah?
We should not assume that Carrie Page's mother is named Sarah. That's not what's happening. The word Sarah is triggering to her, just like we all think of Sarah Palmer as a freaky and dangerous entity. Carrie needs only a tiny bit of Twin Peaks memory to be freaked out by just the name Sarah. Once inside the Page house, Richard sees that a murder has happened. Who is the victim and who killed him? I don't think that there is an answer to this question. If we let Odessa play out, Richard would follow the clues and maybe crack the case, but we have interfered with the normal course of the story. Who done it? Did someone frame Carrie Page? We'll never know. It's like all the pieces are placed on a chessboard, and then two of the pieces suddenly go to Washington State. But Richard and Carrie are not in the real Washington. Richard and Carrie are in the closest thing to Twin Peaks that can exist if Twin Peaks is not part of the story. Remember, they meet Alice Tremont, not Mary Reber. I like to think that there are these Odessa mob figures just waiting around like, where's Richard? What do you mean he drove to Washington State? What do you mean he put 3 guns in a deep fryer? We are so gonna get canceled. In the end, we hear Sarah's voice. This could be interpreted as Laura's memories flooding in, or maybe Sarah has the power to cross over into this new world, or maybe we're witnessing something that I simply cannot explain. It appears that Carrie Page is now Laura Palmer, or something equally distressing has happened. The final attempt to bring back Twin Peaks, to make a fake Twin Peaks, has failed. Cooper did not end up in reality. He ended up in the Twin Peaks universe he had intended to manifest, but he didn't predict that it would be a pale imitation of Twin Peaks. Lynch is trying to illustrate the absurdity of returning to the past, and we get to see multiple surrealistically futile attempts to do so. Did people get the message? Well, everyone on Reddit is asking when season 4 is coming out, so Laura Palmer can scream as loudly as she wants. We don't hear it. A lot of people accuse Lynch of trolling us, making fun of us, cynically mocking us while selling us a new TV show. However, people have been accusing Lynch of being a cynical fraud since Eraserhead, a guy who does weird things for weirdness' sake. Are we fools for loving the work of Lynch? Well, I turn that question around and question the wisdom of the millions, billions of people who happily gobble up boring, predictable, derivative work. Work that panders to the audience rather than challenging them. Movies that repeat the things we are comfortable with seeing rather than shock us with something uncanny. TV shows that prey on our nostalgia rather than force us to confront it. Maybe we are nostalgic because so many things went wrong over the last 25 years and we're too busy seeking comfort to try and solve our problems. There is one thing I can say with certainty. If you don't like Twin Peaks, imagine how much worse the media landscape would be if it never existed.